It all started on a quiet Thursday morning in the peaceful suburbs of Maplewood, New Jersey. I was standing by the kitchen window, sipping my coffee as the early sunlight filtered through the curtains. Life had fallen into a predictable rhythm, one that brought comfort after years of uncertainty. My name is Rebecca Hall, and I had been married to James for almost 8 years. When I met him, he was a single father to a quiet but respectful 14-year-old boy named Mason. Mason became my stepson the day I said, "I do," and while we weren't the closest at first, over time, we found our way into something that resembled a strong bond. Now Mason was 22, finishing college and working part-time. He was thoughtful, responsible, and kind. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened, or how everything shifted in one single moment. It began with something small. James had gone out of town on business, leaving me and Mason alone in the house for the weekend. That wasn't unusual. James trusted us both, and to be honest, I enjoyed having the house a little quieter. Mason and I had a routine when James was away. We'd make popcorn, binge a few shows, and have long conversations about life and his future. I enjoyed hearing him talk about his dreams and plans, and I genuinely cared about the man he was becoming. That Friday night, we settled into the living room, dimmed the lights, and started watching an old thriller movie Mason had picked. The night felt lighthearted and easy. At one point, we laughed so hard that tears rolled down my cheeks. It was one of those rare, honest moments where time seems to stop and all feels right in the world. Later, I headed to bed and left Mason cleaning up. The following morning, I woke to a sound in the kitchen. When I walked in, I found Mason had made breakfast, eggs, toast, and coffee just the way I liked it. "You didn't have to do this," I said with a smile. He shrugged. "I figured I'd make your morning easier." That was the thing about Mason. He had a quiet way of showing care that made you pause and take notice. It wasn't just about the breakfast. It was about the way he looked at me, with sincerity and warmth.
I didn't think much of it at the time.
I chalked it up to him being a sweet young man. But something shifted that weekend, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. The next day, I was folding laundry in the guest room when I noticed something odd. One of my personal journals, which I always kept in my bedside drawer, was sitting on the guest bed. I picked it up, confused. Why would it be there? I hadn't taken it out, and James certainly wouldn't have. That left only Mason. My chest tightened. I opened the journal and flipped through the pages. It wasn't just moved. It had been read. The dog-eared corners, the folded pages, even a faint coffee ring on the back cover. This wasn't how I left it. The journal wasn't just a notebook. It was where I poured my thoughts, fears, doubts, and secrets. I felt a swirl of emotions, anger, betrayal, and confusion. Why would Mason go through something so personal? I waited until the evening to confront him. We were cleaning up dinner, and I turned to him. "Mason, did you go into my room?" I asked carefully. He paused, looking like a deer in headlights.
What? Why?
"I found my journal in the guest room. I didn't leave it there." He looked away, guilty. "I didn't mean to invade your privacy. I was looking for a charger, and
I saw it."
"I only read a little." My throat tightened. "That journal isn't just a book, Mason. That's my private life." He nodded, remorseful. "I'm sorry, Rebecca. Really. I wasn't trying to be nosy. I wanted to understand you more. Sometimes you seem distant, and I guess I was just trying to get close to you." That admission made my breath catch. It wasn't just curiosity. There was something deeper. His eyes locked onto mine for a second too long, and in that moment, I saw it, a tenderness, an admiration, and something else, something unspoken. I took a step back. "Mason, you can talk to me. You don't need to go through my things." He nodded again, but the damage had been done. That night, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts raced, trying to process everything. I had always cared for Mason as a family member. But now, I questioned his intentions. Was this just a confused young man seeking connection, or was it something more? The next day, I tried to act normal. I busied myself with errands, stayed out of the house longer than usual, and avoided one-on-one conversations. Mason noticed. "Are you mad at me?" he asked that night while I was putting away groceries. I'm just trying to process everything, I admitted.
I get it, he said.
Then after a long pause, he added, but I meant what I said. I care about you. You've always been there for me in ways others haven't. You listen. You encourage me. Sometimes it's hard to separate those feelings, you know? I turned around sharply. Mason, you're my stepson. That line can't be crossed. Not ever. I know, he said quickly. I'm not trying to make anything weird. I just needed to be honest. I'd rather you hate me for telling the truth than pretend everything's okay when it's not. My heart pounded. I didn't hate him. I couldn't. But I was shocked. I never imagined that he harbored those kinds of feelings. James returned Sunday evening, and everything felt off. Mason avoided eye contact. I felt tense. James didn't seem to notice. He was exhausted from traveling. I kept my emotions tucked tightly inside, not wanting to create drama without understanding how to even explain what had happened. A few days passed, and I hoped things would return to normal. But that hope shattered when I received a letter in my mailbox, handwritten, folded twice. There was no name, but I recognized the handwriting instantly. It was Mason's. I opened it and read words that made my knees go weak. It was a confession. He apologized again for reading my journal, but more than that, he wrote about how he had been feeling for the last couple of years. How seeing me every day, supporting him, believing in him, it changed something inside him. He knew it was wrong. He knew it was inappropriate. But his feelings had grown past the bounds of what they should have been. He promised he would respect the boundaries and never act on anything, but he needed to get it off his chest. I sat in silence for a long time after finishing the letter. I was floored. Part of me admired his honesty, but another part was terrified of the implications. This wasn't something I could ignore. I knew I had to talk to James. As much as I didn't want to, keeping a secret like this would eventually destroy us. That evening after dinner, I asked James to sit with me. My hands were shaking as I told him everything, from the journal to the letter. To my surprise, James didn't explode. He was quiet, thoughtful, and clearly heartbroken. Not at me, but at the situation. I'll talk to him, James said softly. This isn't your fault. You've always treated him with kindness. If anything, maybe he just got too attached in the wrong way. That night, James had a long conversation with Mason behind closed doors. I didn't ask what was said, but things changed after that. Mason became more distant. He spent less time at home and eventually moved in with a friend across town to give everyone space. Months passed, and our home slowly returned to normal. James and I worked through it together, choosing understanding over anger. Mason still called and visited, though the visits were brief and polite.